All right, welcome back to another PSI Real Estate Exam prep. And today we're going to talk about prorations. And so as we're looking at prorations, these two questions, there's going to be a couple things that we want to be on the lookout for. And so let's look at question number one. John buys a property and closes on March 1st. The seller prepaid the property's annual taxes of $6,000 for the year. How much does John owe the seller in real estate taxes? Buyer owns the day of closing. So first thing, right? I mean, a couple things that we need to keep in mind. The buyer owns the day of closing. We are working on $6,000 and it is seller prepaid. So those are going to be some of the things that we want to make sure that we're looking at. So as we're doing this question, this problem, the first thing we're going to do is how many dollars for the entire year. So the dollars is $6,000. And what we're going to do now is we're going to divide it by the months in a year. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go $6,000. We're going to divide that by 12 months. And that means each month is worth $500. So as we're looking at this, the seller owned it in January and February. And so they owned it for 2 months. And that means 10 months are going to go to the buyer. The buyer's going to own the property and the buyer owns the day of closing. So that's how we know that from March to December, that is all going to be the buyer's time. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take those 10 months that are left. We're going to multiply that by $500. And that gives us $5,000. And that's going to be a credit seller, debit buyer. So that's what this would look like. We do $6,000 for the entire year. We divide it by how many months in the year, which is 12. That gives us $500 per month. The seller owns it for 2 months. John, the buyer, owns it for 10. So we need to multiply 10 months times $500 for the amount of time that John's going to own the property. That's $5,000. Credit the seller, debit the buyer. The next one, Gene buys a property and closes on March 1st. The seller prepaid the property's semi-annual taxes of $1,800. How much does Gene owe the seller in real estate taxes? Buyer owns the day of closing. All right, so a couple things in this one. Again, we have seller prepaid. Another thing that sticks out is this, semi-annual taxes. So that means these are going to get paid twice. All right, so that means first 6 months is $1 amount, and then the next 6 months is another dollar amount. Same dollar amount, $1,800. But what we're doing now is we're basing this $1,800 right here off of 6 months. And again, we're going to do buyer owns the day of closing. So let's look at this thing. What we're going to do is we're going to go $1,800 again. So we're going to go with our total dollar amount because that's how much money the seller has paid, was $1,800 for the first 6 months. Again, this is semi-annual. So we're going to go $1,800 and we're going to divide it by 6 months this time. That's going to give us $300 per month. Again, the seller had it for 2 months. And in this case, Gene, the buyer, has it for 4 months. So 4 months times $300, that is $1,200. That's going to be $1,200 credit seller, debit buyer. So again, a couple things we need to look out for when we're doing proration questions. We need to figure out who owns the day of closing. Is it annual or semi-annual? And then from there, is it prepaid or is it paid in the arrears? All of these were prepaid. So we knew that all of these were going to be credits back to the seller. And the buyer owned the day of closing. So this was pretty easy math because we were just doing it based off of months because all the closings were on the first of the month. So we just had to deal with 2 months' time. So hopefully that was helpful. Stay tuned next week for another video to help you pass your real estate exam with PSI.